Welcome in, everyone. This is our weekly flow recap for the week of 1/6/2025 to 1/10/2025. It was a 4-day week. We were closed on Thursday, so a little lighter list here. As always, we're going to look at the full range of the contracts. We're going to kind of go over the flow, what stuck out, just kind of help you get an idea of what I look for flow. And please, if you enjoy these videos, I just ask for a like and a subscribe. If you want to learn more too, feel free. I teach this in Stock Hub. We do live flow and charts a couple nights a week. And yeah. So first off, I do want to show for those that might be new, I do post everything in live time. I don't change any posts. I recap all of our flow, or the flow from the flow alerts, ask, bid, and ETF flow. The other flow we don't always touch on, but I do, for those that are kind of newer to the Discord as well, I do have descriptions in here. So the earnings and the long-term flow we don't track, and flow and charts, these are the flow that I am taking for the week. So let's get started here. So first up here we have these BKRs that came in. These were the 221.45 calls. So these were from Monday. So here's our flow. These are kind of flat right now. We haven't had a big move on these yet. They're we'll fill these at 125. They're running about 103. They did kind of break even here on Friday. But let's take a peek at the flow. So we look at the flow here. This is what I'm looking for. You can see that IV here. That IV's popping as that flow's coming in here. You can see we're seeing all ask side fills here on a wider bid ask spread there. And so these are repeated hits descending fill, and you can see this is where it's considered that descending fill because we have that spot dropping, but this is still at the ask side. So this is why it's important to kind of take a peek at that raw flow feed as well there. So these are sitting break even. Whales down about 17%. 125 was the fill. They closed at 103 today, so whales down 17% on these. Again, 40 days to go on those. So we look at that net call premium. Last 7 days, we obviously had big spikes here on the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th here. So these came in on the 6th. So kind of see what happens there. So that whale's down 17% right now. So moving on, we have Apple. Now this is a good example of wanting to take profits. This is why I always tell everybody to adjust stops up and be smart. So we're going to bump this back to the 6th and take a peek at this. So here is our whale. So we had 15,000 contracts coming in at 83 cents per contract. So about 1.2 million there on that candle. So we look at the flow here, and you can see that IV, it's kind of dropping here, but then we have that large size come in here. So we see that jump in that IV. That looks good to me. So that's what's sticking out there, even though that IV was kind of dropping there. We did kind of drop a little bit there, but again, ask side. So that did look good, and this is why I always tell people to adjust their stops up. Here's our whale entry. These hit from 83 all the way up here to 133. So 130, so that 84 to 133 gives us a little over 58% here on a quick intraday move. And this is plenty of time to adjust stops up. I mean, you're these coming in at 9:10 Central Time and running to a high. I mean, that's an hour. That gives you a lot of time to do that. So, and this is also a very interesting one because we can see as that price is going up, we're seeing some bid side and some ask side candles come in here. Now, looking at the open interest that next day, we only had about half of that carryover. So if you kind of do the math here, you had 15,000 on that candle, and we had a total volume of about 40,000 on the day, only half of that carrying over. To me, it looks like this whale may have took some profits out here, could have sized, kind of had their stops up possibly. I mean, because you're seeing about 16 or 1,800 there on that candle. Seeing another, here we go. Let me move this here a little bit. About 2,200 there. So I mean, you kind of start doing the math. You're gonna get close to that 15,000. So this is why it's always important to adjust stops up, but good example here of, well, maybe slowly sizing out here. And this is why I always tell people you need to pay attention to that volume and open interest too, because now if you look today, these contracts would be down. And even here, so here's back on the 6th, you can start to kind of see where that volume's adding up here kind of throughout the day. So it looks like to me they'd probably close those intraday. But those running from a max return intraday from that 0.84 to 133, that's a 58.33% gain there. And also when you look at that from the 6th here, when I look back at that net premium, here's your 6th. I mean, kind of flat there on the day, but that big drop in that kind of net call premium there too. But we had that big spike in that net call premium as that whale came in. So that's what stuck out there. Let's move on here. We have LRCX. These were on the 110.79 put. And let's bump this back. So here is, actually I'm going to move it to the 6th here just to get a little better view. So these made a good move intraday as well too. And these ones were closed same day. Here is our flow here. We had 3,100 contracts, 129. We look at that raw flow here. Again, kind of see that IV dropping a little bit here, but all ask side fills here. So that's looking good here too. And even when you kind of come up here, you can see that IV. I mean, IV dropped a little bit there, but that IV continues to kind of climb here on that side. So that's why I kind of look at that full picture there. So these running intraday from that 129, hitting an intraday high of 2. So you can see about 8,000 contracts traded on the day. This looks like that whale exiting here about 127. So they sold those for a loss. But look at that high here on the 10th here on Friday. These hit a high of 410. So we're going to kind of bump this out. I want to bump this out to the 10th. So these did expire weekly. So with Thursday being there too, I wouldn't have swung into that, but let's bump this here. So here's that original whale entry, 135. You can see we hit a high of 410 here on Friday. So that's a huge, that's 129 to 410 for that max range. That whale did exit at that 127, 128 for break even, but these ran for 217%. And again, you look at that net premium over the last 7 days or so, lots of spikes in that net put premium here, and that big day on the 10th there of that net put premium on Friday. So that one making a good move. Next up, we had some bid side ABBV on the 321 165 put. So this whale's selling these puts. So keep in mind, this whale's a little further out. We look at the flow, the raw flow here. So for those that, as we're kind of before we're hopping into this, when you're selling puts or calls, you kind of essentially just want that stock to, you want those contracts to go to zero so you can collect that premium. So these are sometimes a little harder to recap right away just because there's so much time on them, but we'll take a peek here. So we got our repeated hits, descending fill here. All bid side fills there. That's looking good to me. And even with that small little IV jump, you're still seeing a lot of bid side fills here. And the good thing here, this is your big size coming in right there. Huge drop in that IV. So this whale's got some time on these, obviously. They're not looking very hot right now. They're probably sweating a little bit, but getting some multi-leg there as well too. But you look at that raw flow. Again, as long as we don't get down to that 165, they'll be happy. So this whale's down right now, probably about 30% or so of their premium. So they're probably sweating a little bit right now, but again, a little longer term here. I do recap these as well on a 2-week basis, so we'll see where we're at in a couple weeks here. So we do have earnings in 19 days, so this could be an earnings play too as well. So next up we had the PLTR puts, and this was my flow and charts pick for the week. So these are the plays that I'm taking. So we had these on the 6th. So we had a large floor trader on that 221.72.5 put. You kind of come in here and look. So there's your whale right there. A lot of net put premium there. We took a peek at that gamma there. You can see that gamma decreasing here. We look at the chart. We had a nice head and shoulders there. Gave a little guidance on this. The whale's a little more mid to long term. I wanted this as a momentum entry with a break of that 20-day EMA. So we opened up pretty much right at that EMA. So these opened, actually, I put 676 for an opening here. I got filled at 680. But these running from that 676 to a high of 1095 on Friday the 10th. So those contracts running for a total of 61% from our entry. This whale got a little better entry, but let's look at the raw flow here again. So again, you can see this was a floor trade too. So floor trades, these are just floor traders that are working the pits at the New York Stock Exchange. They're just making them on their personal accounts. So again, this is what sticks are here. You just see that big jump in that IV. Ask side fills. Very simple there. And if we come back and look at the 6th too with that net premium, let me pop this here. We look at the 6th. A lot of net put premium on that day with put volume as well. So that's looked really good there to me. Contracts made a good move there, 61%. And actually, I want to touch on one more thing here. So now when you look at this too, this is why looking at that volume and open interest is really important here. And you see about 7,000 contracts traded here on the 6th. So, and we had about 4,500 of them carry over. So something very interesting here is we had another 6,100 here on the 7th. And we had a majority of those carry over as well too. So to me, this is telling me that whale added here at the bid. And here we are, because that volume carrying over. See what happens on Monday there, but majority of that volume still sticking there. So it looks like that whale filled at the bid. So this is why I always tell people not everything bid side is a sell and not everything ask side is a call. So keep that in mind. So moving on here, next we have PDD, and these were the 110, 102 calls. So this whale, then this is why I always tell everybody, adjust your stops up and secure profits, because this whale sold for a loss, and this is a very, very good example. So here is our flow from the 6th, filling at 65. We hit 84 intraday. That's a good move on those contracts. That's 65 to about 84. That's going to give you about a little under 30%, probably about 28, 29% there on those intraday. And that's a good return. I'm looking for something at least 15%. Anything over 15%, you should have stops on. Even 15%, 10% return trades, 10, 15%. I have my stops at break even. I'm not going to let something that's up 10, 15% go to zero or go red. That's kind of where that seasonality comes in trading, where you start to learn and kind of adjust stops up. But these contracts also hitting a high of that 115 here on the 7th. So that 115 there on the 7th, and I mean, we stayed about 81, 83 for most of the day on Wednesday, and now here we are on Friday. Whales out with a loss. So that's really interesting there, because these expired on Friday also. But that whale ended up doing those as a loss after those contracts ran for about 76% for a big return there. So SPY, the 124.565 puts. Here we are on the 6th. These coming in at 9.94 per contract. We look at the flow here. Let me pop the results back. So we look at the flow when these started to come in. We come down here. So you can see again, these are repeated hits ascending fill, so that means that your fill's ascending here. So you can see that 94, these are running up to 95. We see that IV increasing as well. So that spot and IV increasing, that's a good sign of a buy. Flow looked good there. Here is our 94. These hitting a high of 315 on the 10th. So really big return there on Friday. So another good return if you held those. It does look like the whale did exit at 178 there on the 7th, because we can see that kind of reflected here in that open interest change on the next day. But these running for a max return of that 235.11%. Really good return there if you wanted to swing those with the non-farm payrolls. So next up we have 2 losses from the week. So not all flows gonna work out. This is again why you need to have a risk management plan. But these coming in on the 7th. And I mean, this one's still 40 days out, but we'll take a peek here. So here is our whale from the 7th. I'm going to back this up a little bit. So here's your 7th, about 128 fill there. So it's seeing a lot of fills there. Contracts fill that 128, only hit back to break even. Contracts are running at 0.92 right now. So this whale's down about 26% right now, but still 40 days on these, so kind of see what happens with these, because they're a little more longer term here. We can see some more volume coming here on the 8th, about 25,000 contracts carrying over, and we're not multi-leg, so it looks like this whale may have added to that position. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. Right now, though, it is a loss. Whale's down 26%. So Intel, the 117.20 and a half calls. This whale actually exited the same day. And this is why I always tell people too, it is smart to have, if you don't have unusual whales, I like to have volume alerts set. So you look at that 3,000 contracts there on the 7th. So that 3,000 contracts there on the 7th had a total of 10,000 on the day. And then we had another 3,000 there after. So it looks like that whale, and you can kind of see that reflected here in the next day's update on the open interest. Most of it not carrying over. But you can see, we look at the flow. So again, flow looks good like a buy. Now, if you look at the bid side, we're going to probably see that IV decreasing. So here's that IV decreasing, and you're seeing bid side fill. So that whale exiting there. If you don't have unusual whales and you're following flow from online anywhere, I like setting the volume alerts. So if this had 3,000 contracts at the time, I'd set something maybe for 5,000, and then if I'm following somebody that has unusual whales, I'd ask them, hey, I saw a volume alert, can you check this? Something I like to tell my group. So DHR now, we had the 117.235 puts. So again, these up, so 230, they hit a high of 4 here on the 10th. Nice return of 73.91% there. You can kind of just see that there. I'm not going to dive super deep. We're getting towards the end of the video. NVIDIA, this one was another loss here. So this whale, some interesting flow here, because we had a lot of, you look at that net call premium, a lot of bullish net call premium there. But these 485, they only hit 499. And this is why it's important to have stops, because if you follow a whale, you never know what they're doing. These contracts are really beat up. This whale's, if they are actually bullish, they're down about 69% right now. 12 days on them though. Penn, this was a nice move here. These came in on Wednesday. 94, we'll look at the flow. Again, you can see that IV staying up high. No, not seeing really any drops or anything. You see a little, they're all ask side fills on that little wider bid ask. Looked good there. Whoops, here we go. Again, filled at 94. You can see there's no option activity on here. So this is something unusual to me. These hitting a high of 165 today, or well, Friday on the 10th. So those running from 0.94 to a high of 165, that's 75%. And we have 2 left pins, and we're gonna bump this to Friday. Again, this is why I always tell people, adjust your stops up. be smart. You don't have to follow these people. They're people. We never know exactly what's going on. Huge spike in that net call premium. Whale being filled at 0.73 on here. You can see a quick run up to 95 and a small drop down to 83, but then a run back up to 93. So you hit high of the day twice there. So you had ample time to kind of adjust your stops up. So those running from that 0.75 to 0.95 for 26%. Again, that's a very good return for a quick intraday call. Smart to adjust stops up because you can see what kind of happened here. It looks like they might be selling some for a loss here. I have to check that open interest on Monday. And Carvana, these kind of came in towards the end of the day, mid-afternoon, end of the day. These are on the 221-175 puts, 2 million on these. 12:15 we closed at 11:45. This whale's down 5%. Obviously 40 days ago on those. Can see that net put premium here on the daily. Lots of spikes there, so kind of got to see what happens there. But that is the flow recap for the week of 1/6 to 1/10. Again, if you'd like to try unusual whales, I do have a discount code below. And if you'd like to join Stock Hub, again, very affordable, less than $1 a day. You can learn this. This is a very easy program to learn. Just some basic filtering and kind of learning to read stuff. But otherwise, that's all I got. Everybody have a great weekend.